Run if you want Mom to eat, Blackie. Move. Coach. Look at those shoes. Tape on my track. You stink like that laundromat your mama works at. Please don't talk about my mom, sir. Or what? Run, boy. Show me how fast Hungry runs. A laugh. Breaks from the back of the line. Roman Yates didn't argue. He sat down, pulling off his sneakers. No smart answer this time? He reached for the spikes wrapped in black tape. A folded note slid from the tongue into his palm. Behind the fence stood a man every track coach in America would have recognized. His gaze locked on the boy walking to the line. In seconds, Coach Hollis would look at his stopwatch and see a number that didn't belong to a kid in the taped-up shoes. The boy belonged to the Olympics. The stopwatch in Coach Hollis's hand read 9:8. He stared at it. The boys on the field stared at him. Somewhere behind the bleachers, a crow called once and went quiet. Roman Yates was already walking back from the finish line, slower than he'd run, the way a kid walks music home when there's nothing waiting for him there. Hollis pressed the reset button. The number stayed. He pressed it again. Coach? One of the boys, Caleb Mitchell, 16 years old, the one who'd buckled to one knee when Roman crossed the line, took a step forward. Coach, was that? That was a faulty watch. But I said it was faulty. Hollis didn't look up from the dial. Anybody repeats a number out loud, you run the bleachers until your knees give out. Anybody films a thing, anybody talks to a reporter, you're off my team. Are we clear? Silence. I said, are we clear? A scattered chorus of yes, coach. Roman walked past them without speaking. He sat down on the bench, pulled the spikes off his feet, tucked the folded note back into the tongue, and put on his old sneakers. He didn't look at Hollis. He didn't look at Caleb. He picked up his bag and started toward the gate. Behind the chain-link fence, the stranger was already in the parking lot, getting into a silver Buick that had seen better decades. He didn't drive. He sat there with both hands on the steering wheel. His niece, Sophie, opened the passenger door and slid in. She was 14, still in her warm-up jacket. Uncle Walter, can we go? I'm starving. Yeah, you okay? Yeah. He didn't move. After a moment, he pulled his phone out of the cup holder and scrolled to a contact he hadn't called in 2 years. Pete, PA Track Federation. Walter, long time. Roman Yates, YATES. High school senior this side of the state. A pause. The clack of a keyboard. I'm pulling registered athletes. Sprinters? Nope, nothing. Why? What about junior leagues? Middle school records, anything? Walter, nothing. The name doesn't exist in our system. Should it? He just ran a 100 meters on the high school grass track in 9:8, hand-timed. The line went quiet. Walter, hand-timed 9:8 could be 10 flat. You know that. I know that. 10 flat is still a national record for a kid with no club. So, even if the watch was generous, it wasn't generous. I was 20 feet away. I watched his last 20 meters. He was accelerating, Pete. Accelerating. Another pause. Sophie was looking at her uncle now, the way teenagers look at adults, when they realize something serious is happening that they don't have the vocabulary for yet. Walter, what are you telling me? I'm telling you there's a kid in a town nobody's heard of, running times nobody on this continent runs, and his own coach just told the entire team to pretend it didn't happen. The line stayed quiet for a long time. Walter, you don't fix that with one phone call. I know. What are you going to do? Walter Brennan looked through the windshield at the empty practice field. Somewhere on the other side of that field, a boy with taped-up shoes was walking home alone. I'm going to go find his mother. Roman pushed open the door of the trailer at 6:48 in the evening, and Eleanor Yates was standing at the kitchen sink with her back to him. A balled-up tissue clutched in her right hand. She slid it into the front pocket of her apron the second she heard the door. You're home late, baby. Coach kept us. Mm-hmm. She didn't turn around. She turned on the faucet, ran her hands under the water, dried them on a towel that had been gray for so long, Roman couldn't remember what color it used to be. I made ramen. You want hot sauce on yours? Yeah, sit. Roman sat at the small table, 2 bowls, 2 folded paper towels, 2 plastic spoons. His mother poured boiling water from the kettle into the second bowl and slid the styrofoam lid back on to steep. She turned around finally, and the light from the bulb above the sink caught her face, gray under the eyes, lips chapped white at the corners, a knit cap pulled low over her hairline. He'd been seeing her wear that cap for 8 months now. He had stopped asking why. "How was your day?" she said. "Fine, just fine, yeah." She sat down across from him. She didn't eat. She watched him eat. Roman. "Yeah? You'd tell me if something happened, wouldn't you?" He stopped mid-bite. The fluorescent bulb buzzed. Outside, a truck went past on the main road, and the trailer's thin walls shook for a second, and then went still. "Yeah, Mom, I'd tell you." She nodded slowly. Okay, they didn't say anything else for a long time. He finished his ramen. She drank a glass of water. He took both bowls to the sink and washed them, and she sat at the table with her hands folded in her lap, looking at a spot on the wall that didn't have anything on it. Later, after he had gone to bed, Eleanor went into the small bathroom at the back of the trailer and closed the door behind her. She didn't turn on the light. She leaned forward over the sink in the dark and coughed once, twice, into her caftan. When she straightened up and rinsed her palm under the tap, the water ran red, and then pink, and then clear. Across town, in a house Roman had never been to, Coach Hollis sat alone in his garage with his stopwatch on the workbench in front of him and reached for something in the bottom drawer that nobody, not even his wife, had ever seen him open. The bell above the door of Stillwater Laundromat rang at 9:14 the next morning, and Eleanor Yates didn't look up from the folding table. She had a stack of white sheets in front of her, hospital sheets from the urgent care 2 blocks over, and her hands moved through them the way hands move when they've been doing the same thing for 20 years. "We close at 6 like," she said. "I'm not here for laundry, ma'am." She looked up then. A tall white man, late 60s, gray windbreaker, the kind of shoes that meant he'd spent his life on his feet, but never on a job site. He took his cap off and held it in front of him with both hands. "My name is Walter Brennan. I'd like to talk to you about your son." Eleanor folded the sheet in her hands very slowly, set it on top of the stack, and put both palms flat on the folding table. "Are you a reporter, Mr. Brennan?"
No, ma'am. Are you from the school?
"No, ma'am. Then I don't know who you are, and I have 11 more loads to fold before noon." "I'm a track coach." She didn't move. "Ma'am, I was at your son's practice yesterday. I was picking up my niece from the girls' team. I saw what he did." Eleanor's hands stayed flat on the table. "A lot of people have told me a lot of things about my son over the years, Mr. Brennan. Coaches, teachers, a man who said he was a scout from a college I'd never heard of, who wanted my checking account number. I have learned to be tired. I understand, do you?" Walter nodded once. He didn't fill the silence. After a moment, Eleanor pulled out the metal folding chair next to her and pointed at it. He sat. "Tell me what you saw." "I saw your son run 100 meters in a time that nobody in this country runs without a sponsorship and a training facility and a team of people. I saw him do it in shoes held together with tape on a grass field after his coach told the whole team he stunk like the laundromat his mama works at." Eleanor closed her eyes for 1 full second. "I see. Ma'am, I run a development program with USA Track and Field. I've had 4 athletes go to the Olympic podium. I'm not selling anything. I'm not asking for money. I'm telling you that your son can go very far in this sport if he wants to." Eleanor opened her eyes. "Mr. Brennan, I am going to ask you one question. I want you to think about your answer before you give it to me." "Yes, ma'am. If my son does not run a 9.8 again, will you still be standing here?" Walter looked at the laundromat floor for a moment. He looked at the row of dryers tumbling behind him. He looked back at Eleanor. I want to say yes, ma'am. I really do. But I've been doing this for 35 years, and I am not going to lie to a mother. I don't know. I want to think I would. But the truth is, I came in here today because of the 9/8. So, I'm not going to tell you a thing I can't promise. Eleanor stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Thank you for being honest. I'll ask him. Ma'am, can I leave you my number? No. If he wants to call you, I'll call you. Walter pulled a small white business card out of his wallet anyway and set it on the folding table next to the stack of sheets. Then he stood up, put his cap back on, and walked out. The bell above the door rang again behind him. Eleanor looked down at the card. Walter Brennan, USA Track and Field Development Director. She slid it into the front pocket of her apron next to where the tissue had been the night before. That evening, Roman came home and his mother was waiting for him at the table. Sit down, baby. He sat. A man came to the laundromat today. She slid the white card across the table. Roman picked it up. He read the front. He read it again. He set it down. What did he want, Mom? He wants you to run. For who? For yourself. That's what he said. He saw you yesterday at practice. He says you can go far in this. Roman stared at the card. Mom, I'm not going to get pulled into something that breaks your heart. There've been men like this before. Coaches, letters. None of them were real. I know, so why are you showing me this one? Eleanor reached across the table and put her hand on of his. Her hand was thin in a way it hadn't been a year ago. Because I asked him a question, and he told me the truth instead of the answer I wanted to hear. And that is the first time in a long time a man has done that in front of me. Roman didn't speak. Roman Yates, listen to me. I have spent my whole life choosing what kept us alive. I want you for once to choose what you want, not what saves me, not what feeds us, what you want. Do you understand me? He looked at her for a long time. I want to run, Mom. Okay then, I want to run for real. Then, you call that man. He called Walter Brennan the next morning from the payphone outside the laundromat because the cell phone Eleanor had once shared with him had been disconnected 2 months earlier, and neither of them had brought it up since. Walter answered on the second ring. Mr. Brennan, this is Roman Yates. I was hoping you'd call. Where do we start? There's a community track behind the Methodist Church on Route 6, empty most afternoons. Can you get there tomorrow at 4 gay? Yes, sir. Bring the shoes. Sir, they're the only pair I have. I know. Bring them. We're not replacing them yet. Roman didn't ask what yet meant. He hung up the receiver, walked back inside the laundromat, and his mother looked up from the folding table and met his eyes and didn't say anything. She just nodded once. That night, 3 towns over, Coach Hollis poured himself a glass of bourbon in his kitchen, picked up his phone, and dialed a number he hadn't used in 6 months. The man on the other end answered on the first ring. Greg, it's late. I know what time it is, Richard. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The Yates kid, the one you told me, need keep off the varsity board for your son. A pause on the line.
Greg, what are you telling me?
I'm telling you Walter Brennan just walked into a laundromat in our town. The community track behind the Methodist Church on Route 6 had no lane markings, no electronic timing system, and the chain-link fence that had been bent inward on one side by a falling oak in 2019 and never repaired. There were dandelions growing through the cracks in the asphalt curb. There was one wooden bench, painted white once, peeling now. Walter Brennan was already there when Roman arrived, holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a clipboard.
You drink coffee?
No, sir. Good. I drank both of these in the car. Come on. He set the clipboard down on the bench. He walked to the starting line, knelt down, and tapped the asphalt with 2 fingers. Show me your start. Roman crouched. He set his fingers behind the line, the way he always had, the way nobody had ever taught him. Stop. Roman stopped. You're going to learn this differently. Hand shoulder width, thumb and index finger form a bridge behind the line. Strong leg forward. For you, that's the right. Knee comes down here, not here. When I say set, your hips come up 2 inches higher than your shoulders, not level. You're going to feel like you're going to fall forward.
That's correct.
That's the point. Roman tried it. He fell forward. Good, sir? I said you would. Get up. Do it again. They did it 90 times. After the 88th attempt, Roman was breathing hard and his palms were scraped raw on both sides. Walter had not raised his voice once. He had not said good job. He had not said bad job. He had said again and said bad job. He had said again and again and again. On the 91st attempt, Roman exploded out of the line so clean that he was 3 meters down the track before his head came up. He slowed, jogged back, and looked at Walter. Walter looked at his stopwatch. He didn't say what was on it. He put the watch in his pocket. Roman. Yes, sir. You have one big problem. Bigger than your start. Bigger than your finish. You want to know what it is?
Yes, sir.
You've never once believed you were supposed to be here, on this track, in this sport. You run like a kid who's apologizing for being fast. We can fix your hips in 2 weeks. The other thing is going to take longer. We start tomorrow. Roman nodded. Same time? Same time. And one more thing, Walter pointed at the spikes. Don't lose those. I won't, sir. I don't mean don't lose them. I mean don't throw them away when somebody offers you new ones. Those shoes are the only honest thing in this story so far. Keep them on your feet until they fall off. Roman looked down at his spikes. The black tape on the right toe had peeled up at one corner. He pressed it back down with his thumb. The news traveled the way. News travels in towns where everyone knows everyone's car. By Friday morning, a junior varsity coach at a rival school had mentioned to a referee that Walter Brennan, the Walter Brennan, had been seen on a community track in Stillwater with a black kid in taped-up shoes. By Friday afternoon, the referee had told the athletic director at Stillwater High, who told the principal, who walked down the hallway at 3:50 p.m. and knocked on the door of Coach Hollis's office. Greg, we need to talk about Roman Yates. Hollis looked up from his desk. The bottom drawer of that desk was locked the same way it had been for 15 years. He had not opened it since the night he had sat in his garage with the stopwatch on the workbench. What about him? He's training with Walter Brennan. I am aware he's not on our team anymore. He turned in his jersey. I am aware of that too. Greg, Walter Brennan does not show up in a town like ours to train a kid who isn't on a team. If he's training Roman privately, and Roman runs at a regional open, under a different affiliation, and Roman wins and reporters find out that the kid used to run for us, and we let him walk away. Do you understand what that looks like for this school? Hollis did not answer. Greg, the kid wants to come back. He sent something through me. The principal pulled a single sheet of lined notebook paper out of his folder and set it on the desk. Roman's handwriting, careful, all caps, 5 lines. 1. Public apology in front of the whole team, not private. 2. Walter Brennan coaches me on team time with full access. 3. A scholarship fund for athletes from low-income families starts this year. 4. Every varsity roster decision is posted publicly with reasoning. 5. What you said to me never happens to another kid on this team. Ever. Hollis read the list once. He read it twice. He set the paper down. An 18-year-old kid is making demands of me. An 18-year-old kid has Walter Brennan standing behind him. Consider it. The principal walked out. Hollis stared at the paper for a long time. He pulled a key from his pants pocket, unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk, looked inside without taking anything out, and closed the drawer again. He locked it. He picked up the phone. Richard, he's making demands. Then say no, Greg. It's not that simple anymore. Of course it's that simple. He's a kid from a trailer with a sick mother. You say no, Walter Brennan. The line was quiet. Walter, Richard said. Walter, Greg, read me the list. Hollis read him the list. When he got to number 4, Richard said the word no very quietly. When he got to number 5, Richard said nothing at all. "Greg, number 4 ends my son's spot on varsity." "You understand that?" "I understand. My son does not lose his spot to a charity case. Walter Brennan is not charity. Walter Brennan is the Olympic pipeline. If we say no, he calls his contacts at USATF. He calls reporters. He gives them a kid in taped-up shoes whose own coach told the team he stunk like his mother's laundromat. Do you understand what that looks like, Richard? For me? For you? For your son?" The line stayed quiet for a long time. "Then you apologize," Richard said. "But the scholarship fund is small, and the roster posting starts next season. Not this one. You buy us time, Greg. You buy us time, or I find a new coach who will." He hung up. Hollis Snorts sat in his office until the school went dark. Monday morning at 7:30 a.m., the entire track and field team stood in 2 rows on the gym floor. 22 boys in matching warm-ups, Caleb Mitchell in the front row. Roman Yates standing alone in the back of the room near the door, because he had not yet been given a jersey to put on. Coach Hollis walked to the center of the gym floor with a folded piece of paper in his right hand. He did not look at Roman. He looked at the paper. "I said something to one of your teammates last week that was wrong. I said it in front of all of you. I'm going to take it back in front of all of you. Roman Yates is a member of this team. He is welcome on this team. What I said about him and about his mother was not coaching. It was cruelty. I am sorry. That's the end of it." He folded the paper in half. He folded it in half again. Caleb Mitchell looked at the floor. Roman walked from the back of the gym to the front, took the jersey one of the assistant coaches was holding out to him, looked Hollis in the eye for exactly 1 second, and walked back out. He did not say thank you. He did not say, "I accept." He had set 5 conditions, and the man who had broken him in front of 22 boys had just met the first one in front of those same 22 boys. And there was nothing in Roman's posture that said the score was settled. The score was not settled. The score had not even been counted yet. That afternoon, in the parking lot of Stillwater High, a man in a black sedan that did not have a license plate visible from the front rolled down his window and watched Roman walk to the bus stop. He took out his phone. He took a photograph. He drove away. He sent the photograph to a number saved in his phone as R.D. The Tri-State Regional Open at the Pittsburgh Sports Complex drew 3,000 people on a Saturday in late October, mostly parents and college scouts, and the kind of high school athletes who had been winning meets since they were 9 years old. Roman Yates was not on anyone's program. The line on the entry sheet read simply, "Yates R. unattached." In the locker room, Tyler Davenport sat 3 benches down from Roman in a pair of Nike Maxfly spikes that retailed for $300 and tied his laces without looking at them. He glanced at the black tape on Roman's right toe. He didn't say anything. He looked back at his own shoes. Walter knelt in front of Roman. "You've never raced on a tartan track." "No, sir. It's going to feel like running on a trampoline compared to the grass. Your spikes are going to grip differently. You're going to have 90 seconds in the call room to get used to the idea. Don't try to run 98. Run the race I taught you. The clock will say what the clock says." "Yes, sir." "Roman, sir." Tyler Davenport over there has been to nationals 3 times. His coach has been working with him since he was 11. His shoes cost more than your rent. None of that matters once the gun goes off. The track is 8 feet wide and 100 meters long, and it does not care. Roman nodded. They lined up. The announcer read the names. Lane 4, Tyler Davenport, Westbrook Academy. Polite applause. Lane 5, Roman Yates, unattached. Silence except for one voice in the upper deck shouting, something Roman couldn't make out. He didn't look up. He set his feet in the blocks. His hips came up 2 and higher than his shoulders, the way Walter had taught him. He felt himself wanting to fall forward, and he held it. The gun went off. He came out of the blocks 210 of a second behind Tyler, because his right foot slipped on the metal pedal, an angle he had never practiced. By 10 meters, he was a full meter behind. He didn't panic. He kept his head down through the drive phase, the way Walter had drilled into him on the empty community track behind the Methodist church. By 30 meters, he had cut the gap to half a meter. By 60 meters, he was on Tyler's shoulder. By 80 meters, the crowd of 3,000 had realized what was happening and was on its feet. He didn't catch him. Tyler crossed at 9:91. Roman crossed at 9:94. 3,000 people applauded for the wrong runner, and Tyler knew it before he had finished his deceleration. He walked back along the curve of the track, found Roman with his hands on his knees, and stopped one step away. "Nice run." Roman looked up. "Yeah." That was all either of them said. Tyler glanced one more time at the black tape on Roman's right toe, the way you glance at a thing that has changed and is going to keep changing, and then he walked off toward the warm-down area, without looking back. Walter found Roman a minute later. That was the second fastest 100 ever run by a high school kid in this state. "I lost, by 3,100 of a second, in your first race on a real track, wearing taped-up shoes." Roman didn't smile. He didn't speak. He picked up his bag and walked toward the exit, and Walter let him go. In the parking lot, a reporter from the Gazette caught up to Walter Brennan, who was loading 2 folding chairs into the trunk of the Buick. "Mr. Brennan, who is the kid? His name's Roman Yates. Where does he train? With me and before you?" Walter paused with his hand on the trunk lid. "That's a question you should ask his old coach." Then he closed the trunk. The story ran on Monday, page 2 of the sports section. A photograph of Roman crossing the finish line 3,100 behind Tyler Davenport, with the headline, "Kid in taped shoes nearly beats 3-time national finalist." The article did not mention Coach Hollis by name. The article did not need to. It mentioned that Roman Yates had been an unattached athlete as recently as last week. And it mentioned the laundromat where his mother worked, and it mentioned in the final paragraph that the boy had been training privately with a coach who had developed 4 Olympic medalists. Within 48 hours, the article had been picked up by ESPN's online desk. Within 72 hours, someone had filmed Coach Hollis's apology to the team on a phone anonymously and posted it to a video site. And the comments under the video included the phrase, "Run if you want mom to eat 900 times in the first 3 hours." The hashtag started in Atlanta. A track coach named Brianna Holloway posted a still from the news article alongside a still from the leaked apology video with a caption that read, "This is what gatekeeping looks like. This is what we mean when we say a kid never gets a chance. Justice for Roman." By Wednesday night, it was on the homepage of 3 news sites. By Thursday morning, the Office for Civil Rights at the United States Department of Education had received a formal complaint filed by a Pittsburgh civil rights attorney who had read the article over breakfast on Tuesday, alleging that Stillwater High School had engaged in a pattern of discriminatory athletic selection in violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Inside the school, the principal closed his office door for the first time in 8 years. Inside Richard Davenport's law office on the 22nd floor of a building in downtown Pittsburgh, 3 lawyers in suits stood around a conference table while Richard sat at the head and stared at a photograph on his desk. The photograph showed Roman Yates walking to a bus stop in front of Stillwater High School. There was no license plate visible in the corner. "Burn it," Richard said. The youngest lawyer hesitated. "Sir, if the federal investigation subpoenas your phone records and we have already destroyed evidence, that becomes burn it and the number it was sent from today." The young lawyer nodded once and left the room. That same evening at the state championship 6 days later, Roman Yates ran 9:89 and won. He did not celebrate. He walked from the finish line back to the start line in silence. The way a man walks who has crossed something and is not yet on the other side. In the family section of the bleachers, Eleanor Yates stood up, brought 2 fingers to her lips, kissed them, and pointed at her son. She did it slowly enough that the photographers in the press pit caught it on 3 different cameras. That photograph ran on the front page of USA Today the next morning. The morning after that, Roman pulled a hamstring on the back straight of a tempo session at the community track behind the Methodist church. He went down hard. Walter was at his side in 4 seconds. The team physician arrived in 15 minutes. The diagnosis was a grade 2 strain, 4 to 6 weeks minimum. Olympic trials were 5 weeks away. Roman lay on the asphalt and looked up at the gray Pennsylvania sky and didn't say anything for a long time. That same afternoon, 2 reporters knocked on the door of the trailer behind the laundromat. Eleanor Yates answered the door without her knit cap because she had been napping. Her hair, the thin patches of it she still had after 8 months of treatment, was visible for the first time in a public-facing moment. The reporters didn't ask. They didn't have to. One of them lowered her phone. "Ma'am, are you sick?" Eleanor looked at the 2 strangers on her porch. She looked at the camera that was still recording without being pointed at her. She did not cry. She did not move. "Please leave my doorstep, ma'am, and turn that off." The reporter turned the camera off. The reporters left. The photograph that did not get taken that afternoon did not run on any front page. But Roman, sitting in the urgent care clinic, 40 miles away, with his right leg packed in ice, scrolled through his phone and saw a different photograph. One a neighbor had taken from across the road through a screen door 3 weeks earlier. Eleanor in her knit cap walking out of the trailer, gaunt, slow. The caption read, "The mother of the kid who almost beat Tyler Davenport, cancer ward at Mercy Hospital, allegedly. Source close to the family." Roman stared at the screen. He had not told a single person. Roman walked into the trailer that night and did not take off his shoes. He sat down at the small kitchen table where his mother was already sitting, and he set his phone face up between them. The photograph was still on the screen. Eleanor in her knit cap, gaunt, captured through a door from across the road. Eleanor looked at it, then she looked at her son. "Mom." "I know, baby. How long?" 8 months, the refrigerator hummed. A dog barked 3 trailers down. Roman did not speak for what felt like a very long time. When he finally did, his voice came out level, the way it had come out level the day Coach Hollis had called him Blackie in front of 22 boys, and Eleanor knew exactly what that levelness cost him. "I'm not going to trials, Roman. I'll get a job at the warehouse on 6th Street. The spikes are paid for. Mr. Brennan will understand." Roman Yates. "Mom, you've been bleeding into the sink for months. I've heard you every night since February. I didn't say anything because you didn't want me to, so I didn't. But I am not getting on a plane to Oregon and leaving you alone in a trailer to fight this by yourself." Eleanor reached across the table and put her hand flat on top of his phone, covering the photograph. "You listen to me. I have spent 18 years pulling sheets out of dryers so you could eat. I did not do that so you could throw the only thing you have ever loved into a hole in the ground because I am sick. I did not raise a boy who quits. I raised a boy who runs. So you are going to get on that plane and you are going to run that race. And when you cross the line, you are going to know that your mother sent you there. Do you understand me?" He did not answer. "Roman Yates, do you understand me?" "Yes, Mom." She took her hand off the phone and turned it face down on the laminate. "Now, finish your dinner. It's cold." Hollis showed up at the trailer at 4:40 the next morning. He did not knock. He sat in his pickup truck, with the engine running and the heat on low. And when Roman came out at 4:45 with a duffel bag over one shoulder, Hollis leaned across the bench seat and opened the passenger door from the inside. "Cleveland's 3 hours. Eat the sandwich. It's in the bag on the floor." Roman got in. He ate the sandwich. He did not speak. Hollis did not speak. They drove west on Route 76 in the dark, past closed gas stations and the dim shapes of barns set back from the road. And the only sound for the first 2 hours was the heater fan and the rhythm of the wipers. When the snow started outside of Youngstown, somewhere east of Akron, Hollis cleared his throat. I read a book, Modern Sprint Mechanics, the 2024 edition. 30 years coaching, and I learned 6 things on page 19 yesterday morning I did not know the day before. Roman watched the wipers. I am not asking you to forgive me, son. I am driving you to Cleveland, because you need to get to Cleveland. That's all this is. Roman looked out the window for a long time. Then he said, "The day I cross the line at the Olympics, that's the day I answer you, coach." Hollis nodded once and did not speak again until they reached the clinic parking lot. Hayward Field, Eugene, Oregon. The United States Olympic Trials. The men's 100-meter final. 8 athletes. Lane 4, Roman Yates. Lane 5, Tyler Davenport. Lane 6, Cameron Wallace of LSU. Season best, 984. 12,000 people in the stands, and not a single one of them had eaten dinner. Walter Brennan sat in row C of the coaches section with both hands wrapped tight around the steel railing. In a hospital room in Pittsburgh, Eleanor Yates pushed her dinner tray aside, asked the nurse to turn the television up, and sat up straighter against her pillows. In the basement training room of Stillwater High, 400 miles from Eugene, Coach Hollis stood in front of a small portable television with a paper cup of black coffee in his hand, and 12 middle school athletes watching beside him because he had told them earlier that week they could stay late for this. The gun went off. Roman came out of the blocks first. The drive phase was the cleanest start of his life because the hamstring had forced him to stop thinking about anything except the 8 steps in front of him. By 30 meters, he led the field by 1/3 of a meter. At 60 meters, exactly where the strain had torn him on the back, straight at the Methodist track 5 weeks earlier, his right hamstring went tight. He did not break stride, but the acceleration died the way a fire dies when the fuel runs out, and Tyler Davenport pulled even at 65 meters and pulled ahead at 68. Cameron Wallace pulled even at 72. Roman dropped to 3rd. He had 3rd. 3rd was an Olympic team spot. He had told his mother he would get on the plane. The plane required 3rd. He had 3rd. At 80 meters, with his right hamstring screaming in a language he could feel inside his teeth, Roman Yates remembered what Walter Brennan had said to him on a community track behind a Methodist church the first day they had ever worked together. "You've never once believed you were supposed to be here." He decided to belong. At 85, he passed Cameron Wallace. At 90, he was 1/10 of a second behind Tyler Davenport. At 95, he was half a body length back. At 98, he leaned. Tyler leaned at the same instant. 12,000 people held one breath. The photo finish took 3 seconds. The board went dark for one of them. The crowd fell into a silence so complete that the click of a single camera shutter in the press pit echoed off the empty stands across the infield. Then the board lit up. Lane 4, Roman Yates, 9:91. Lane 5, Tyler Davenport, 9:92. By 1/1100 of a second, Roman Yates of Stillwater, Pennsylvania, was on the United States Olympic team. The stadium broke open. He went down on the track. The team doctor reached him in 7 seconds. The hamstring had held. It had given him everything it had, and it had held. Tyler Davenport walked over, knelt down beside him, and put a hand on his shoulder. "Beat me in Tokyo, yeah? I'll try." Tyler stood up. He walked past the area where his father, Richard Davenport, was standing at the rail in a charcoal suit. He did not stop. He did not turn his head. In the hospital in Pittsburgh, Eleanor Yates lay back on her pillow and finally let herself smile. In the basement training room at Stillwater High, Coach Hollis set the paper cup of coffee down without drinking from it, walked over to the light switch, and turned on the practice field floodlights outside. It was 4:15 in the morning, Eastern Time. The middle school athletes followed him outside without being told to. He had work to do, and he no longer pretended he was the one teaching them. The Olympic Stadium in Tokyo seated 80,000 people, and at 9:47 in the evening, local time, on the second Sunday of the Games, every single one of them had stopped breathing. In the call room beneath the stadium, Roman Yates sat on a folding chair with his right shoe in his lap. The black electrical tape on the toe had been replaced 5 times in 14 months. He pressed the latest layer flat with his thumb. It had. Then he slid 2 fingers into the tongue of the shoe and touched the folded note without taking it out. Across the room, Maya Whitfield of Jamaica sat with her eyes closed, headphones on, lips moving to a song no one else could hear. Her season best was 9:79. Walter Brennan walked in. He did not bring a clipboard. He did not bring a speech. He stopped in front of Roman, put one hand on his shoulder, and said, "Go run, son." Then he walked out. Roman tied the shoes. Eleanor Yates was in the family section of the stadium. In a wheelchair the United States Olympic Committee had provided, after they had flown her business class from Pittsburgh on a hardship grant arranged by Walter Brennan 2 weeks before. The chemotherapy had taken her hair entirely. She wore a soft white scarf her sister had mailed her from Atlanta. 6 time zones west at 4:47. In the morning Eastern Time, Coach Gregory Hollis sat alone in the coach's office of Stillwater High School with a paper cup of coffee in front of him. He had driven the 7-minute from his driveway to the school at 3:50 in the morning because he had not wanted to be anywhere except a track. At an NBC studio in New York, Tyler Davenport sat in a charcoal blazer with a microphone clipped to his collar. He had agreed to come because he had been asked and because his father had told him not to. The starter raised the gun. On your marks. 8 men crouched, set. 80,000 people made no sound at all. The gun went off. Roman came out of the blocks clean. Maya came out clean. By 10 meters, they were even. By 20 meters, they were still even. The drive phase that Walter had built one repetition at a time on a community track behind a Methodist church on Route 6 was the drive phase Roman now ran in lane 5 of an Olympic final. And his hips were 2 in higher than his shoulders, and his head was down, and his right foot did not slip. At 30 meters, Maya stood up half a step before Roman did the way the smallest fraction of a habit can betray a runner who has trained her whole life. And Roman gained 1/10 of a meter without trying. By 50 meters, his lead was 1/4 of a meter. By 60 meters, it was 1/3. Maya Whitfield was running the race of her career, and she was losing. At 70 meters, her right shoulder tightened. It was the smallest tightening, the kind no spectator could see. But Roman felt it the way a swimmer feels the temperature change at the bottom of a pool, and he lengthened his stride. 1 centimeters, then 2, then 3. At 90 meters, the gap was 410 of a meter. At 95 meters, Roman leaned 5 meters early, the way a man leans when he no longer cares whether he falls. He crossed the line. The board took 2 full seconds. The stadium did not breathe. Then, the board lit up. Lane 5, Roman Yates, United States of America, 980, gold. Roman went down on one knee on the tartan. He pulled his right shoe off. He took the folded note out of the tongue. He opened it. He read what his mother had written on it when he was 3 years old, and what she had refolded into a fresh piece of paper every 2 years for 15 years since. Run like I'm watching, baby. He looked up at the family section. Eleanor was in her wheelchair. She did not stand up. She brought 2 fingers to her lips, kissed them, and pointed at her son. Exactly the way she had done at the state championship 1 year ago. He brought 2 fingers to his own lips, kissed them, and pointed back. At the NBC studio in New York, the host turned to Tyler Davenport. "Tyler, you've raced this man twice. What goes through your mind right now?" Tyler did not speak for 2 seconds. He swallowed. The studio said nothing. The host did not fill it. I raced him twice. I lost twice. Tonight I would like to lose a third time. He did not say anything else. In the coach's office at Stillwater High, Coach Hollis put his face in his hands one time. He held it there. Then he stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the empty practice field, where 14 months ago he had told a boy to run if he wanted his mother to eat. He walked downstairs, Harry. He turned on the floodlights. It was 4:15 in the morning, and the 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds from the youth program he had volunteered to coach during his suspension would be there at 6:00. He had 2 hours to set up the blocks. On the metal podium, Roman Yates stood at attention for the national anthem, with his right hand over his chest and the folded note pressed against his palm beneath his uniform. He did not cry. When the anthem ended, he stepped down from the gold position, walked over to Maya Whitfield in silver, and put a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you for running with me." She nodded once. He turned and walked off the podium. 18 months later, the Eleanor Yates Foundation awarded its first 12 scholarships to high school sprinters from low-income households across the state of Pennsylvania. Walter Brennan served as chairman of the board. Tyler Davenport served as the public ambassador. Coach Gregory Hollis served as the head coach of the foundation's youth training program, which met every Saturday morning on the community track behind the Methodist Church on Route 6. Eleanor Yates was at the first ceremony. She was thinner than she had been in Tokyo, and she walked with a cane now, but she was there. She handed the first scholarship in person to a 14-year-old boy from the trailer park, 3 exits down the highway. His name was Andre Mitchell. He was Caleb Mitchell's younger brother. He was wearing a pair of spikes. Roman had handed him in the parking lot the week before. The spikes were not taped. If you have ever had a coach, a teacher, an aunt, or a stranger who stopped what they were doing and bent down to look at you when nobody else would, tag their name in the comments. Tell them you remember. Tell them tonight. Because somewhere out there, a kid in taped-up shoes is walking to a starting line. And the only thing standing between him and the world is whether one adult decides to see him.